Right, a couple things, just so you know. A few people have been asking me questions during the break, why doesn't mine work, etc. I will tell you, John had said how his worked where mine didn't. My div was in the wrong spot. I had the div, I had the stuff for this, okay, that wasn't within the div. I had the div and then I put that stuff. As soon as I moved that div, it was correct. I went back and checked every bit of code in Chapter 10, even the stuff I know that worked, I went back and redid it. And now when you take a look at it in here, you'll see that it does as it's supposed to. Whoops. It shrinks down. We've got that here. All right. Now my home is doing what, just exactly what you said. So I'm not sure what the problem is. I'll have to go take a look at that. So, all right. But this all works now. Now look, it works. If you look on the screen here, Devin, it works when it's big. It's when it's small. So there mustn't be anything that, see, don't look. I'll go to chess. See, it works big. But when I make it smaller and I shrink it down, then it stops working. So now when I start to cut this down, and now when I click on the home, it doesn't work. So either I'm missing something, maybe the book is, or maybe we haven't gotten there yet. I don't know. I'm really not sure. All right. But I'm going to lumber on, just continue on from where we were. Like I said, we've got approximately 10 pages to go in the chapter here. So I'm on page 266. All right. Removing view duplication, down towards the bottom half of the page. The author says in the previous example he wanted to show you how you can have a controller select a view based on routing information passed by a call to HTML action. Remember one thing that got mentioned, it was in here today, but we talked about it yesterday too. Sometimes what you're using for software, Bootstrap is designed to be a client-side product. Does that make sense to everybody? You're using Bootstrap on the client. MVC is server-side. So it is not impossible they could be at odds with one another. All right? There may be some time you try doing a Bootstrap thing and it's like, you know what, for the life of me, I can't get it to work. Then you override the Bootstrap by using your own CSS. All right? You may have to do that on occasion. All right. The author says, in a real project, I would not have two views, a menu.cshtml and a menu horizontal, that contain basically the same stuff. This is a maintenance risk because if you change one, you may not change the other. Or something may work in one, and as Devin would tell you, may not work in the other one. All right? So the author says to resolve this, we're going to consolidate the views. We're going to create a new view file called flexmenu.cshtml in the views nav folder. So come back into here. In our views nav folder, views nav, we're going to right mouse click, add a view, and that view, according to this, is supposed to be called flex menu. All right, so we're going to add that. It'll be empty. Okay, and the code we're supposed to put in is shown on the bottom of the page and going on to the next page. So let's put it in, and then let's go back and talk about what's in there. Now think about what the author is saying here. All right? He's saying that right now the biggest problem that we have with what we're doing right now is we have two different files, one that's called menu and one that's called menu horizontal. And we are supposing that we're keeping them lockstep with one another. But what if someone else ends up maintaining our project and they change one of these two files and they don't change the other one? All right, that's his fear from what I can read into this. All right, so I've got this, and then on the next page, we've got this. All right. Thank you. So when you take a look at what's in here, the author says the cost of removing duplication is a more complex view. That's the bad news. But it can generate both orientations of buttons, so it's a matter of personal preference over which one you use. Does that make sense? All right. Now, it says the listing shows useful features that you can apply to views. So let's look at these. It says the first is the ability to access routing information directly from a view. That's pretty cool. You are actually saying in here that route data that's defined in our routeconfig.cs file, we want to be able to play with it in our own code. All right? So it says the view context property here provides information about the current state of the request being processed, including routing information. All right? And it says the second feature is the ability to handle local variables within a view. Now, one thing that you were taught, you may or may not remember this, but one thing that you were taught last semester in the C# class is that you should use global variables as little as possible. All right? Because when you have global variables, they can be changed anywhere. That kind of goes to the wayside with what we're doing now. Think about the project that you just worked on. All right? Think about the test that you just took the other day. Okay? You might have gone in and made a couple local variables, but by and large, everything you did was passed back and forth between the model and the view and the controller. All right? So the author does say they should be used sparingly because it's a slippery slope. Well, the funny thing is we could have taken this caution when we were taking the C# class, and we could have said global variables should be used sparingly because it is a slippery slope. So it's kind of changing focus right now. All right. A related feature, it says there is the way Razor will conditionally set attributes, and that's this. All right. If it's horizontal, we'll do this. If it's not, we won't do anything. So we are setting a variable called wrapper class based on whether or not our horizontal is set. If our horizontal is set, we will take button group small justified and set that to wrapper classes. If it's not, we'll take null and set it to wrapper classes. All right, and he talks about it in more depth and breadth of coverage here. I'm not going to say any more to it, okay? Now, the next thing he does here is he said, okay, if we're going to use this new menu, we got to make changes. So what are the changes? They're here, and they're here. And guess what? I'm not making any of them. I'm happy with it being two menus. I actually prefer that, but it's a style thing. If you disagree, all right, so what I'm telling you is in what I just created here, I don't need this thing called flex menu. I don't need it because I'm not using it. If you decide to use what the author has, more power to you. And if you use what the author has put in here, then yes, you need flex menu, but you don't need these two anymore. Does that make sense? I'll take your question. Does that make sense? Anybody that it doesn't make sense to? Go ahead.
What are the two menus? What are the different?
All they've done is they've in the flex menu, they've combined the attributes of the two into one file. So it's, do you want it to be in two files, or do you want it to be in one file? I like it in two files because I like it where I can tell where the logic is different between the two. What he does is he creates one file, which to me introduces more complexity that I don't need. There's plenty of complexity in this program already. All right, but like I said, more than anything else, it's a matter of choice. That's all. Now, what I should do is, since I'm not using that flex, I should get rid of it. But I'm going to leave it in there. Again, it's up to you which way you want to handle it. Totally up to you. All right, page 269, the limitations of responsive design. You may or you may not have heard of what I'm about to tell you right now. All right, but let's see. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to anyway. All right. There's a word that's called panacea. You may know what it means. You may not know what it means. You may know what it means better than I do. But sometimes when somebody comes up with a really, really terrific idea, all right, and other people like it, all right, then maybe over time someone will be able to prove, you know what, this idea that you came up with, it works right 999 times out of 1,000, but I can come up with a time it doesn't work right, and I can show that to you. And then people will say, well, it's not a panacea. In other words, it doesn't solve everything. The reason I'm bringing that up is the author says right here, responsive design is not a panacea. You may not be able to totally responsively make something that is perfect. All right? A guy I used to work with, he used the saying all the time, perfection is the enemy of good enough. All right? Listen to that. Perfection is the enemy of good enough. In other words, what some programmers end up doing is they literally spend their lives tweaking what already works. It works, but I got to make it work better. And after a while, you're not making it work better. Yeah, it may look a little bit better, but is all that time and effort worth what you got? And in a way, at least, that's kind of what the author is asking right here. All right? Because, again, he says that it is not perfect. All right? And, again, he talks about some of the problems that are in here. I don't want to read it to you, but he comes up with 2 or 3 problems with this. And the biggest thing is, no matter how good you think it looks, it may not look just perfect. Now, if you work for somebody and they keep telling you to tweak it, tweak it, tweak it, tweak it, tweak it, and you get to the point where I'm tweaking it and it's not looking any different, then you might want to tell them, you know what, we've agreed on this stuff, and I'm willing to go on and do more for you, but then we may have to go back and we may have to re-talk about things. All right? I've given you this example before. I'm sorry if I'm being redundant, but I want you to hear it. All right, where I used to teach, students had to find internships. And I had a student who was doing an internship for a senior citizen's home. And they were calling him in every week. We want you to change this. We want you to change this. It happened like 8 times. Finally, he told me. He said, Mr. Scott, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I'm telling them, whatever changes we're having a meeting today, they want me to make, that's fine. But I'm not making any more. They didn't like that. And they called him next week and wanted him to make more changes. He said, no. He said, get somebody else if you want that. All right? All right. Last part of the chapter, starting on page 269, talks about creating mobile specific content. So let's finish this up. All right. Responsive design delivers the same content to all devices and uses CSS to figure out how to style that content. So how to make it look nice. All right. So the author says you don't have to choose between responsive design and mobile. In most projects, you need to use both. Yeah. The MVC framework supports a feature called display modes, which allows you to create different views that are delivered based on the client that has made the request. Okay, what does that mean? The client that made the request. That means that the system is smart enough to figure out the device the client was using to make the request. Did they make the request typing something into an address bar of a phone? Or was it a tablet or a laptop or a desktop or something else? So what the author does in here is he uses a special jQuery package called jQuery Mobile. And it's a library, and as he says, he tries to use it to bridge the gap between something just being responsive and something looking right for mobile. All right, so that's what he does. Now, what do we have here? Well, look, we're going to create a new file. It's going to be in the same folder as our underscore layout file, but it'll be underscore layout dot mobile dot CSHTML. All right, so it says all I have to do to create mobile specific content is to create views and layouts that have a .mobile.cshtml suffix. I'm now going to create the new underscore, etc. Okay? Well, then how are we going to do that? Well, we've got to come in and we've got to make sure, this is an important thing, wherever our layout file is, our underscore layout, which is where? It should be under view shared, right? It's right there. See how it hides? We want to make it in the same place. So I'm going to right mouse click on the shared folder, choose add, and choose view. Make sure you're in the shared folder, right mouse click and choose add view. That should be named underscore layout dot mobile. The .cshtml will be added to it in just a minute. All right, and again, I'm on page 270. So when I put that in and click add, it says it doesn't like something. Okay, well then let's look. It's not allowed to have any of these characters. Well, there's always a way around everything. Go ahead.
For that, when I did make it, I made it at the bottom of
you made view. Ah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and you're right. Add, choose down here, choose MVC5 layout. Which one did you use? I'm not. View page razor, and let's see if that's what they tell you in here. Right clicking the shared folder. There you go. All right. Okay, so add, choose MVC layout page razor. So right mouse click on shared, add new, MVC, I don't remember what it was again, MVC layout page razor. MVC layout page razor. I would suggest if you didn't use that one, you remove the one you put in and replace it with this one. I wouldn't just change the name or anything else. All right. So underscore layout dot mobile. Now it shouldn't bark at me. Of course it does. It says I've already got that. Oh,
if you add.
Hold on. Add MVC layout page razor. All right. Underscore underscore layout dot mobile. I'm not going to hit enter yet because instead I'm going to go back to here. All right. And what were you saying?
Just add the .cs.
Actually, I think if I had just a dot, it would probably work. But let's put the whole thing in. CSHTML. So put the whole thing. Underscore layout dot mobile dot CSHTML. I am going to make you one promise. That is, when we are doing this project, many of you will get upset with me thinking, why in the hell is he going so slow? Because I want to do it right with you the first time. And if that means it takes us a little longer, so be it. All right. Now I'm going to click OK. There it is right there. Underscore layout dot mobile dot CSHTML. And then rather on page 270 in the book, I'm going to shrink this down, but they show you the entire file. So I'm going to highlight all of it. Try it again. I am going to highlight all of it, copy it to the clipboard, and replace what's in there with this. Couple things. Please look up on the screen, okay? We are going to use jQuery in the project we're doing. I wasn't going to use any jQuery mobile, but I'm going to use some jQuery stuff that I've been playing with. But the point is, look at this. I'm not positive, but I'm willing to bet you these are fairly old versions. That said, I'm sure the author also used these because they work and don't conflict with the other files that we're using in here. All right? So we're coming in here. For some reason it didn't get rid of what I had in there before, so there we go. All right. Did my doc type. Move this over. But the key thing is what we're adding here, this line, the jQuery mobile. All right. So I'm coming in here. I want to pretty this up just a little bit. I don't know why I've got another body and an HTML here, but I do. Again, probably in my zest to get this done fast. That's no excuse. That's just stupid. All right. But it should look the way it does on page 270. I believe that now mine does. All right. So this layout uses jQuery Mobile, which I obtained using a CDN. You all know what a CDN is by now. In other words, we could have also gone into NuGet Package Manager and done that as well. All right. Now, and the author says, I'm just scratching the surface by creating mobile-specific views. In other words, it would be possible for you to go back and take every view you have in a project and make a mobile version of it. All right. Not only is it possible to do that, in some cases, that may be recommended. All right. So the MVC framework will automatically identify mobile clients and use the underscore layout.mobile when it is rendering views. All right, it says you can see the impact of the change in figure 10.7. Well, I'm going to look and see if I see any difference. So I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to run it again. Again, always nice to know when it comes up we haven't broken anything as far as the way it currently looks. Now, just so you know what's next in here when the author talks about creating the mobile views, he goes and makes changes to the flex menu, or he adds a flex menu.mobile.html. Since I'm not using flex mobile, we can go over it, but I'm not going to do it. All right. So we've got this. Shrink that down. You see what it looks like. Cart. It still is goofed up, but that's from me. All right. That I don't like. Looking at it here, that remove button should be, moved over further. But again, the good news is if this is supposed to emulate right here what it would look like on a mobile screen, it's at least viewable every place. See that? I'm not saying it's perfect. By no means is it perfect. All right? But I can look at it, and that's still screwed up. All right? That may even be fixed in the next chapter. I don't know. All right, so let's finish this up. The author says, I'm going to start with the category filtering, which means creating a view called Flex Mobile. So really, probably I should go back on mine, and where he had that Flex Mobile and he made those changes, I should make those changes so I can add this file right here on 271. All right, I will do that after this part of the lecture is over. All right. All right. Then he explains what's going on in here. It says the result is that the response to the browser is generated from a mix of mobile-specific and general views. All right. And lastly, on 273, he mentions here there are still two potential problems with what he has in here. There are still two potential problems with what he has in here. The first, it says, I have provided less functionality with a mobile version as opposed to the non-mobile. All right, so that's something that would have to be addressed. Secondly, I have not offered the user a way to switch back and forth between the two automatically. In other words, there's nothing like a drop-down that would say, do you want the mobile version or the non-mobile version? And that's what he says. Neither of these issues prevents me from deploying the app, but they are the kind of frustration that can plague people using it. All right? So the last change that's in here in the chapter on page 273, the author says, my last change is to create a mobile-specific version of the view that generates the product summary. Okay? So there'll be a product summary.mobile.cshtml. I'm not going to put it in because I don't have the other stuff in. But I will, right after I get done with this, I'm going back to where they had the flex menu, and I'm going to add all that stuff. All right? Now, well, do we have to do that? I'd like you to. All right? That's all I'm saying is I would like you to. All right? So the rest of the period today, the last 2 hours plus, will be for you to get this working and or work on anything you still have. Tomorrow, again, we're going to be working on a lot of stuff where we're going to be writing different kinds of queries. Friday will be lab. You know what's due Friday. Questions? All right, that's all that I had then.